The Speckled Monster and the Printed Page. In the year 1677, the salt air of Boston carried more than the scent of the sea. It carried a shadow. A silent enemy, the speckled monster of smallpox, crept through the narrow, cobbled alleys. 17-year-old Elias walked quickly, his cloak pulled tight. He saw the marks on the doors, red signs of quarantine that whispered of a city paralyzed by fear and mystery. Elias was an apprentice to Thomas, a man who served the town as both a minister and a physician. In Thomas's study, the air was thick with the smell of dried herbs and old parchment. Thomas looked up from a heavy tome, his eyes bright with a dangerous idea. "Fear spreads faster than the pox, Elias," Thomas said. "We must replace the panic with a rule of reason." To understand the enemy, they had to face it. Elias accompanied Thomas to a small house near the wharf to visit Caleb, a young sailor who had fallen ill. Caleb lay in a sweat-drenched bed, his skin covered in the painful, angry eruptions that gave the disease its name. Elias held a cool cloth to Caleb's forehead, realizing that without guidance, the town was lost. That night, Thomas did not sleep. By the light of a single tallow candle, he began to write. He didn't write in the complex Latin of the universities, but in plain English that any merchant or mother could read. He titled his work "A Brief Rule to Guide the Common People of New England." He wrote of fresh air, of cooling drinks, and of the need to keep the sick away from the healthy. When the manuscript was finished, Elias ran it through the morning mist to the workshop of Foster, the town's only printer. The printing press was a heavy beast of wood and iron. Together, Elias and Foster set the tiny lead letters into the frame. This was to be the first medical document ever printed in the American colonies, a broadside of hope. By midday, the ink was dry. Elias stood at the center of the marketplace, clutching a stack of the freshly printed broadsides. He began to hand them out to the passing crowds. People snatched them up, their eyes widening as they realized these were not prayers or laws, but instructions on how to survive. Inside a small cottage, a mother named Mercy sat by her hearth, reading the brief rule to her young son. For the first time since the outbreak began, she felt she had a weapon against the speckled monster. She learned that piling heavy blankets on a feverish child was a mistake. The body needed to breathe. Knowledge was beginning to chase away the old, harmful superstitions. Days turned into weeks, and the atmosphere in Boston began to shift. The frantic prayers of the doomed were replaced by the orderly care of the informed. Thomas and Elias stood on a hill overlooking the harbor, watching the smoke rise from the chimneys. The epidemic was still there, but the brief rule had given the people a shield of logic. Elias looked at one of the last copies of the broadside, now wrinkled and stained. He realized that the power of the press wasn't just in recording history, but in changing it. One single sheet of paper had bridged the gap between the healer's study and the common man's home, proving that science belonged to everyone. The 1677 brochure became a cornerstone of American medicine. Thomas and Elias had shown that in times of crisis, information is the most vital medicine of all. As they walked back toward the infirmary, they knew that while the speckled monster would eventually fade, the era of the printed word as a guardian of public health had only just begun.